I live in Texas and have done now for over a decade, but I was originally born and raised in Glasgow, Scotland. I grew up, moved over here for work, and never quite made it back home. Now, there are lots of differences between Scotland and Texas, but there are also some shockingly similar things. Not the weather, culture, or distances, but I was genuinely surprised by how much overlap there was. In this video, I want to tell you about the biggest culture shocks I experienced. Let's get down to it. I would wear this, but it's not mine and it doesn't fit. I don't think this is how they're supposed to sit on your head. Let's talk weather. In Scotland, it is cold and it rains. A lot. In some parts of the country, it rains more than 250 days out of the year. That's crazy. In winter, the days are short, dark, cold. In summer, the days are long, bright, and still mostly cold. On the odd occasion we do get a heat wave, you'll see guys in Scotland proudly going taps aff, which means tops off. And they'll be walking around topless, shirts off, taking in the beautiful warm weather that they finally have access to. Basking in it all day until their pale, peely-wally skin turns from translucent white to pinky sunburned. Usually you get a few dozen days of snow each year in Scotland too, but in Houston at least, snow is almost unheard of. My mum was visiting at the start of this year and we had like a once-in-a-century snowstorm in Houston. And she was just wandering about like it was totally normal. The rest of Houston was grinding to a halt, but my mum was just totally unfazed. Snow in Scotland, not a big deal. In Texas, there are natural disasters. Think hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, tornadoes, freezes, flash floods, droughts. I've never seen an actual plague of locusts, but it's definitely on my Texas weather bingo card. I was here for Hurricane Harvey, which was basically one of the worst storms in US history, second only to Katrina. There was 50 inches of rain, thousands of homes destroyed, over $150 billion worth of damage, and more than 100 people died. The weather here is no joke. The food here, you guys. There are a surprising number of similarities. Both cultures love to fry things. In Scotland, it's fish and chips, a sausage supper, deep fried pizza, deep fried Mars bar. In Texas, it's corn dogs, catfish, burritos, Oreos, cheesecake, butter. Also, both places are somewhat partial to using traditionally thrown away parts of animals. You can basically get a beef tongue sandwich, a lingua taco, both here and there. The Scots love mixing up all those parts of the sheep into some haggis. And here, some people, myself included, are particularly partial to what's called mountain oysters. Google it. The portions here are comically huge, like plates as big as your head. If there is anything left on your plate, typically your server will ask as standard if you'd like a to-go box. Growing up in Scotland, I always heard of the mythical doggy bag that would let you take your food home from a restaurant, but to this day I've literally never seen anybody do this in Scotland. It's just not as culturally a thing. Both places have a soda, fizzy drink, that rivals Coca-Cola, at least in terms of hearts and minds, if not dollars spent. In Scotland, we have the fizzy, orange-coloured Iron Brew, and here they have Dr. Pepper. Now, growing up in Scotland in the 90s, I remember when Dr. Pepper tried to make a push to break into the market, and the slogans were like, Dr. Pepper, so misunderstood, and Dr. Pepper, what's the worst that could happen? That's sort of indicative of the Scottish response to Dr. Pepper. We didn't quite get it and we were a bit sceptical. It never quite took off in Scotland, but in Texas, it has a special place in so many people's hearts. My favourite thing to eat here is Tex-Mex. This is a really fun fusion of traditional Mexican food that has evolved over the years in parts of Texas. The closest thing we had to Tex-Mex in Scotland when I was growing up was those old El Paso taco kits, which led me to believe that hard-shell tacos were the only option. Soft, malleable tacos stuffed with delicious fillings. Where have they been all my life? In Texas. Let's talk driving and transportation. Now, Texas is not a walkable place. It is very large and spread out. The weather also is not conducive to just walking for 10, 20, 30 minutes to get somewhere if it's summer. When I first moved here on day 2, I took 3 buses and then walked half a mile to get to an IKEA just to furnish my apartment. That was not the way to do it, but it was my only choice. Because, full disclosure, I never quite learned to drive in Scotland. I never had to. Things are close. Public transport is great. My friends drive. Here, that wasn't really an option, and so eventually my husband graciously taught me how to drive. Driving in Houston and Texas is all I've ever known. That means 8-lane highways, automatic transmissions, speed limits optional, petrol for the price of peanuts, and cars the size of tanks. I have tried driving in Scotland since I got my license, and it has not gone well. We rented a car a few years ago and I almost took out this like ancient cobblestone bridge just by smashing into the side of it. Lanes in Scotland are narrow because the cars are narrow, and I'm just very used to my ample elbow room, so to speak, when I'm driving in Texas. Growing up in Scotland, you never really have to worry about the wildlife. Maybe a fox might ransack your bin when you put it out to be collected, but you're not really going to see anything that scary or that dangerous. There are wild cats, but they're basically the size of house cats and they're almost extinct. I remember being told over and over in school when I was young that we don't have snakes in Scotland, you don't have to worry. Well, we do have adders, like grass snakes, like very proudly, like we have snakes, we're dangerous. But I've never seen one. I don't know anyone who's ever seen one. I've seen snakes since I moved here. The one thing you do have to worry about is this thing we have called a midgie, which is basically a biting gnat. They'll hang out at the bottom of your garden in a shady spot in this sort of cloudy swarm, but they'll typically stay to themselves if you leave them alone. They also hang out in marshland, and so if you find yourself walking through any marshland, they will descend upon you and bite you to death. Every person in Scotland has a story about being bitten by midges and just being miserable for days. You can't see the bites, they're basically that small, but they burn like fire and you just need to grin and bear it and get through it. In Texas, different story. The biting gnat is the mosquito, and there are huge bloodthirsty mosquitoes here. I did not know this when I moved here, and I kept thinking, this is a strange heat rash I'm getting all over my body. And it wasn't until I accidentally scratched and squashed a mosquito that burst with my own blood that I realised mosquitoes is what was happening. Near my house, where I live and sleep, there are alligators, and big snakes, and vultures, and fire ants, and hornets. It really puts things in perspective. One time I was visiting my husband's granny. She was out in her garage and I heard a clatter and I heard her shout, "Neil!" because I was the only one around. And I thought, no, Granny needs me. Had my Scottish grandma been in the other room and I heard a clatter and she called my name, I would be running to check while simultaneously calling the ambulance. Here, I poked my head into the garage and Granny said, "Neil, come here, I want to show you this." And she showed me the rattlesnake that she had found and killed in her garage with like a backhoe. Here is a picture. I've converted it into something a little bit cutesy, a little bit less disgusting for the more sensitive of you. If you want to see the original picture, I'll put a chapter title in the video and shove it at the end. And she didn't need anything. She just wanted me to know that she had killed that rattlesnake and thought I'd be interested. And I was, but I was also terrified. Scots love a good party. That's Hogmanay, what we call New Year's Eve. That's Burns Night, which celebrates our national poet, Robert Burns, which is basically an excuse to drink whiskey. And we'll throw a ceilidh at the drop of a hat. Now, a ceilidh is a traditional Scottish dance party where we do Scottish country dancing. This is a little bit like line dancing in that you do it with a partner or in a group and it's organised, but it's a little bit different. The band playing is made up of an accordion and a fiddle and a drum kit. And the dances you typically learn in PE class in high school. Now, it is mortifying in high school when you have to ask someone to dance with you and learn how to dance with them, or dance with the PE teacher as they demonstrate the dance to your peers. Just socially so damaging. But when you're an adult, ceilidhs are so much fun. We had a mini one at our wedding. Lots of my friends have had mini ones at their weddings. They're just a really good chance to move and dance and have fun. In Texas, apparently there's line dancing. I've never seen it, I've never been to one. The big annual event in Houston is definitely the rodeo. So Scottish people think it's like going to the carnival, except as well as the carnival, there's also a huge stadium where actual global music superstars will perform a full concert for a very low price. And over here, there's a full-on livestock show with thousands of people and even more animals on show, on display, showing the best that Texas agriculture has to offer. I am speaking for two entire nations here, the Lone Star State of Texas and the proud nation of Scotland. So I'm sure I've just offended several million people. If you are one of them, please leave me a comment telling me exactly how wrong I got all of this. And now I'm just gonna, I guess, ride off into the sunset.